open session. The board has nothing to report out. Number 6, approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Open time for public to raise items not on agenda or for future agendas. Anyone wishing to address the board of directors on matters within the district's jurisdiction but not on the posted agenda may do so. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The board may not take action on or discuss items not on the agenda but may briefly respond to statements or questions by a member of the public. The board president may refer any matter to staff for further follow-up or to elect to have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Seeing no public, committee's out. Finance committee.
Okay, Finance Committee met yesterday, Michael and I, and basically we went over the consent calendar in quite a bit of detail, so we can talk about any of the things that you'd like. We also had some comments on the, we reviewed the business plan, and we thought it was quite well done. So, and all the finances look fine to us. We did have one point. And it was that the long-term liability, oh, well, this is on 10B. It says long-term liabilities, and it says revenue bond liability is 102.7 million. And actually, that item is revenue bonds outstanding plus the premium we received on the bond. So we received an $8 million premium, so it's kind of misleading. I'm going to suggest I think we ought to label it revenue bond liability and bond premium. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that was it. And do you have anything like that?
No.
Oh, yeah, regarding this, our finance and administrative manager is not available for the meeting today.
Oh, that's right.
Felicia Newhouse. She's at the CalPELRA conference, which is sort of a human resources conference for public agencies.
Where's that?
In Monterey.
All right.
And Jason Dow is there as well.
And like his whole staff.
Yeah.
It's a graveyard over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody.
So, but regarding this financial question, I did get a explanation from Melvin Garcia, our finance supervisor, and what Director Gaffney said is right. One thing to point out about the bond premiums, though, is that money is also available for us to use. So it's part of the overall, it's part of our debt, but it isn't excluded from the district's use to spend on capital projects. So, but I think it's a more accurate description of our total debt to include those premium amounts.
Yeah.
So it was a good discussion. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you, Director Gaffney.
Ad hoc committee for the business plan. And Doug.
Well, it's an agenda item. I think we can wait unless you have something.
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've actually had 2 meetings now, but that was the final.
Good job, I thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Mary, would you like to add? No.
We had
Okay.
resources.
CMSA.
Yes, I'll do that. It was a fairly light meeting. We had the audited financial statements, which looked very good. The auditor was surprisingly impressed with the knowledge of the board on the subjects. He said, usually I don't get these kind of questions. So that was a little alarming to me in general. But at any rate, the statements were very good. They had no complaints or issues with any of the financials for the year, and that was good. We did have space findings. The president of the board and I are on a ad hoc subcommittee to evaluate all the space that was precipitated by me inquiring as to the land across the street. And a meeting or so later, Jason said, yeah, it was 47 acres. And I remember looking at one of the board members and said, that's going to be a typo. But we used to own that road, that road didn't exist. That road was built when the plant was built to finish Anderson to go out towards the bridge. In fact, we learned that we own 26 acres there. It's very hilly.
26 from 40?
Yeah, so it was a typo, it's 26
Okay.
acres. I think it was 46 acres in total, so 26 and 25, something like that. However, it's very hilly. Could we do anything with it was what we were considering. And we learned that that property was purchased at the time that they were going to build the plant and fully reimbursed. That part of the land, the 27 acres, was fully reimbursed to CMSA by the EPA as an odor break.
As a what?
Odor
break.
Oh.
Which means, no, we can't do anything with it. But since we were on the, we had that ad hoc committee, what we did is we looked around. Odor buffer, yeah. We looked around at all the land, and it was an issue of if we needed more space, if we needed more office space, if we needed another lab, what would we do and where would we do it? And at the same time, as a matter of that, through Michael's hard work, during the process of that, we also, as we reported before, rented the back space to Marin Transit for parking the buses. So we have a plan for what we do. There is some areas there, and we know what the space is, what the space could be used for, and if the future change, we have some ideas of what we do. So
Did you tell them that we might have some office space?
they know that, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, because here's one of the things: the property that the building is built on is
I mean, CMSA.
CMSA, the building. They had to dig down into the ground to build that, and it was built on basically on.
Mud.
Yeah, and so it'd be very hard to put a second floor there, which is one of the reasons we couldn't have moved there, because putting a second floor in the first place would be hugely expensive because they'd have to take up the first floor essentially. So anyway, we'd go out, but I think yes, in the future, if we needed more space at CMSA, the first thing they should do is talk to the owners of the Comcast building, which is us. So that was a couple of other small minor
I
items.
also wouldn't want to probably live up in that property because as it turns out, a lot of bullets come flying through there. They find bullets down by the digesters and.
From the shooting range, from the sheriff.
I'm aware that
shooting range on the other
Marin
side.
Transit buses have been hit several times. So it's
Since they've been there,
I don't know if it's since then, but going up that Anderson.
we don't want to say it, but there might be an odor problem there too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's it.
Okay.
Does that mean that we own half of that 26 acres?
We own all the 26 acres. Oh, do we own
Yeah,
half the
you
church?
do.
Well, as a
No,
Maybe
it's we
as
do
the
not own,
JPA.
And then we don't.
the individual members do not own,
All right, I'm just
CMSA owns it.
Facetious.
And that's
I
a
know.
strength of that JPA.
Okay.
Right.
I'll just mention that there was no North Bay Watershed Association. Why? There was a little fire up there, so they said skip it till next month. Verbal report by board members and staff, and request for future items.
Oh, future items? Yeah. Let me space out this. So this Watershed Marin Alliance, the thing I talked about, I think the last meeting, and I think you had some, Steve, you said you have some affiliation? The
No.
Watershed? Oh, it's
No,
a
it turns
different-
out it was a different one.
Oh, okay.
I didn't understand who you were
So-
talking about.
I talked to one of the people involved, and I wanted to know, she's willing to come in to do like a really fast presentation, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, but I think it would be nice. I think it would be good for us to look at the watershed, and I gave you the flyer last week, so they're interested in coming in, so that was one request.
Okay, well,
I-
put them in touch with us. and-
Okay.
I think
And
the
then-
Christmas hat.
Another thing, do we put on the agenda for an update on the Comcast building, or do we just do that indirectly, or what? I'm not
Why
sure.
don't you do that at the end in the managers, just at the end, you can just mention it to us.
Yeah, we don't-
Yeah, just verbal.
Yeah, we haven't put a standing,
This is that time.
we haven't put a standing item, and we can, if the board wants to have an agenda item, you let us know, we'll put it on the agenda.
I don't
Or a
We-
verbal
We
report.
can
Yeah,
do verbal
that's
report.
fine, I'm just
Yeah.
curious. And then, I don't know if this is an agenda item, but we're talking, Steve and I are talking about touring the district, because I haven't looked at it in a long time, and I lost, a lot of information that I had when I first ran for office, so, and we don't know if that needs to be an agenda item, but it might, because then we can plan it for the future. And that's it.
Good. Sounds good. We did hear about that. Yeah, any other reports?
Yeah, I just want to mention that Steve and I were talking about how we're so pleased that so many other agencies have joined us in the Comcast advertisement. Great job, Steve and Steve.
Yeah.
And their logos will be attached. We were looking to have the 3 Southern Marin agencies join us, and that would be the Sewer Agency of Southern Marin, Sausalito Marin City, and what's the last one?
SD5.
D5.
Tiburon Development.
I've reached out to them, and I know Lou Kios of the Sewer Agency of Southern Marin, and he's agreed to bring it up at the either open time or, it's not on the agenda, but he's going to bring it up, and he said it looked very interesting. I tell you that if we get to the point where we get those 3 as well, it'd be $572 a month.
Is Belvedere and Tiburon didn't want to do
I
it?
didn't say that.
Oh,
I think so far they haven't agreed, but I'm reaching out to the board members, and so, I think sometimes board member to board member
I'll
is
call
different
Todd
than...
Moody.
Huh?
I'll call Todd Moody.
Okay. And which is he from?
Tiburon Belvedere.
Okay.
Been there for a while.
Okay, good.
And
I know I reached out...
I know Sausalito really well.
Great. Why don't you...
I think it-
And do you have, I'll forward to both of you, can I do this? I can do this, can I? I'm sorry, can you forward to both of them the email from you, or just so they have the commercials? Because what I did is I said, here are the commercials.
Okay.
And at the end of it, you can see all of the logos. Las Colinas, Novato, CMSA, Ross Valley.
Okay, what is 575?
If everybody joins, if the 6 we have now plus the 3 more 9, then you divide the monthly and it'd be 572 for all of them. Right now it's, what is it, 1,600 or something?
It's more like
That's more like-
2,500.
Then how could it be 572? I was doing it by month, you were doing it by,
Oh, yeah.
I was doing it by month.
Yeah, we're doing 3 months, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
so how much is it? I don't understand that.
I'll actually give a report on that.
okay,
Okay,
Because
good.
it's still,
okay.
I'd like to know if pump station 15 is totally done, and,
15.
okay, when, momentarily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have an update on that, but I
Somebody
don't
told me
know.
they saw a bunch of trucks, a big meeting going on. He's like, you're on the sanitary district, right? What's the big meeting going on in the pump station right now? And I was like, you're not at that level of detail.
You weren't invited.
Can I add one more thing? I wanted to thank Steve and Felicia and Andrea for resolving the issue of the $13,000 lateral loan, which was found in favor of the applicant.
Oh, great.
Oh, very good.
So I appreciate the hard work on that.
And that was because we have a limit of 10,000?
No, that's because we have a limit of not giving loans on shared laterals. She didn't know it was a shared lateral, and apparently we didn't know it was a shared lateral when we approved the loan. She went out and hired people and had it done, and after that, we found out it was a shared lateral, but we were able to resolve that to her, in her favor.
To answer Board Member Silla's question about Pump Station 15 Kentfield, we actually have Representative Somas here, Chris Davenport, who's worked on that, or at least ancillarily, and you could probably answer whether it's done, and maybe you qualify that, because we're at a point where it's operational, but I wouldn't say it's done. And then do you have anything
So
to add?
Steve, you want to answer the question why the trucks were there?
Training,
Okay.
getting all my guys
And
ramped up
talk-
now. We just got done with a
operations.
7-day test, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, yes, so with the new pump station, we need to train our staff on the new equipment, right? So that was a big gathering. And Mr. Davenport?
And so the next step is, again, it's like building a house, it's putting the face plates on the outlets, and so there's a lot of small stuff that needs to be buttoned up, as well as, right now, the pump station is operating on the 2 small pumps.
Right, the dry weather small pumps.
So we need to come back and reconvene when the big pumps start running, just again to check, because it's all new operational scheme, it's a new computer installed for that system. So just, again, with any it's like a Microsoft program, because I'm Apple. There's bugs, so we need to debug it when the big pump system comes on. So there'll be a little bit some more follow-up over the next, like 2 months or so.
So are we gonna have a standard operating procedure?
For everything, yes,
It's
sir.
already have, yeah.
We will have it.
Well,
During the
We're
first
gonna
big
actually
storm,
develop
we're
it.
gonna get that screen that says, just a minute, while Microsoft 10 upgrades.
No.
Are you
Microsoft
the-
15.
What's your position? I'm sorry.
One of the engineering consultants has helped managing the construction and startup and
With Somas.
turnover. Yep. So Mr. Skrell usually shows up, but he's somewhere else tonight. I've dealt more with.
did you work for Solis before, or did you work for,
Cabello.
Canal? Okay.
Yeah, one of the people that got transferred over.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for answering the question. So I have a few items, and we've touched on a few of them already in my general verbal report. First, on Larkspur Landing cleanup project, we are now winterized, meaning we are not excavating anything nor importing any soil. Last week, we hydroseeded, so the previous week we brought in topsoil, and last week we hydroseeded. That's where we apply grass seed that's from this area, and it also grows quickly on that topsoil layer of what we excavated and backfilled. And so if we go out there, we should start seeing the grass grow. We put in a sprinkler system too because it's not raining. We probably would have done that anyway. That's standard practice, just to make sure the investment in the hydroseeding catches. Why would we do this? Because we're going to apply to not be covered by the construction stormwater permit. And we call it a notice of termination. We want to not be enrolled. Why would that be? Because if you're enrolled in the construction general permit over the winter, you have very onerous, intense inspection and reporting requirements and monitoring requirements. If there's a big storm on Saturday night at midnight, you have to be out there collecting data. That's not cheap. So we call that the NOT. So to be NOT ready, we have to have the site back to natural conditions where we don't have construction-related runoff and sediment. And we set that up over the last 8 days of work, and that's within the budget of allowance that was approved of $150,000 for wet weather circumstances. So we were able to use that entire budget, or we used that budget to fund the entire cost of winterizing and having a two-season project.
And they're done with the project, with, parts of the land are completely done, they're completed, right?
Right.
And so, when we're done, is that when we would leave it seeded and then out of there? So,
That's right.
a good share of the project, we don't have to mess with again.
True, and there will be some nuance to that. We are going to minimize re-disturbing certain lands, but some will have to be in order to do the logistics of stockpiling.
Oh, sure.
And the way EPA requires us when we discover certain things to stockpile separately and sample to confirm they're not contaminated by PCBs. And so there has to be a certain amount of laydown. You may have heard that term, in construction. And so we're going to minimize that, and that'll be part of next spring's planning, so that we don't have to reseed and put in topsoil. But there will be a little bit of that. Yeah, and so that's in place. Our staff are actually helping to save costs, but we don't pay the contractor to come out and run the irrigation. We're doing it in-house to save costs. So that's all working out, right?
Are we using recycled water?
Good question. No, it's really not cost effective. We need it to hook up to the hydrant that just creates the pressure needed for the sprinkler system. And we run it for about a half hour twice a day. And we're using Marin, one of our meters, portable meters we use for the sewer cleaning, we're using in this interim period. It should only last a week or two, in terms of when the rains come, and this time of year, you'll get the grass to take hold and we can turn off the sprinkler. But this is just a fail-safe mechanism to make sure we don't lose the investment and have grass die on. So that seems to be working out pretty well. Any other questions on Larkspur Lane?
That sounds like a good plan, a good idea.
So,
And I'm sorry, I have a question on that. When do we find out if your request is approved?
the request, yes, right, our staff, our consultant, Kennedy Jenks, are managing that process, so we'll find out as soon as feasible.
Okay. Would you shoot an email out to everybody that, I assume that would come before the next meeting?
Yeah, I don't know the exact timing of that, but I think we're in good shape, we're on track.
Okay.
So I
And that's
don't
from
know.
EPA?
No, it's actually the water board. There's the construction general permit is a statewide MPDS permit to minimize impacts from sediment from construction sites. And we have coverage under that, we're enrolled. Just in case we would have had storms in October, very common, right? We were ready in compliance, had BMPs established to minimize erosion, in compliance with that permit.
Remind me, has it been a year since you were with the water board?
Yes, it's been more than a year.
Yeah.
A few days more.
So you can talk to
A few days.
people?
It's what?
It's been a year plus a few days.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So just checking.
Can you talk to them now, Steve?
Yes.
Oh.
On a first name basis?
Oh, yes. In fact, that's part of my report. So that's Larkspur Landing. But yeah, I don't have to necessarily interact directly, though I could, on that program. It's more of an enrolling and it's a paper exercise, not a negotiation. But my second item is I had a phone conversation with Regional Board of Staff and the head of the NPDES division about the cease and desist order. And there was over an hour of discussion. But I'll cut to the chase. We received in writing today an approval of our request via email, and we'll get a letter as a follow-up document. Our request was to use the infrastructure asset management plan to be completed at the end of next year to inform the capital improvement plan of budget year 21-22, and to submit that to the Regional Water Board as the district's commitment to implementing capital improvements to meet public health protection and water quality protection based on condition and risk assessment principles in the IAMP, which you heard about, and they accepted that. So our due date to remain in compliance is March 31st, 2021, to submit a revised schedule and capital improvement program. And that's based on principles and the analysis of the infrastructure asset management plan update. So that's good news.
So we're deciding the projects we're working on as opposed to them picking them out of thin air and telling us what to do.
Or giving us a rule of thumb like 4 miles a year or
Yeah.
something.
Right.
And that makes great sense.
Right. There won't be a prescriptive amount of mileage a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can anchor this, and it was helpful. In my correspondence with them, I did mention, because the cease and desist order talked about sewer rates being addressed. Since this board has approved that, and that was part of our submittal to the regional board, that factors into their consideration. So that we can then say, this is what the budget is, this is what the IMP said are the priorities, these are our commitments. And I think there's going to reach a point where the cease and desist order ceases to be in effect. And the feedback was that if you look in the order itself, it has certain dates. And when those dates pass, you either have submitted something to replace them, or the cease and desist order is no longer in effect. So there's, and the latest date in the order is June 30th, 2021. So that's kind of a timeline similar to what the March 2021 timeline is, and it gives us an opportunity to bring the plan forward and have them recognize it as an alternative way to be in compliance and ultimately not have a cease and desist order.
So the CBO will sort of sunset in 2021.
That's generally the understanding, but we'll get the letter, we'll maybe get some more clarity on that, and the dialogue will continue. But the feedback is positive. The regional board regulates 140 collection systems. in the Bay Area. So our district's important, but we are one of 140 when through their lens. And they're just concerned to make sure that these different organizations are meeting the minimum standards, and they're not concerned that Ross Valley Sanitary District isn't meeting minimum standards at all.
Didn't you tell the finance committee that one of the considerations for issuing the cease and desist was the fact that the district postponed a rate increase for a year or so? Didn't have any rate increase, with no commitment for capital.
Yeah, and I have a copy of the cease and desist order here, and it is one of the findings. I don't know if I can pull it out right now off the top of my head, but there was talk about the fact that there was a SHECAP, which is a System Hydraulic Evaluation and Capacity Assurance Plan, that wasn't being implemented. There were recommendations in 2006, and it just wasn't being built. Yeah, it's not jumping off the page. But there knows a violation, yeah, so.
The reason, one of the reasons they gave the cease and desist in the first place is that this prior board postponed a rate increase.
Yeah, it was
And they thought
fine.
that was reckless in the light of ongoing costs that
Yeah,
were needed.
the capital needs and the postponed rate increase.
Was that
And that was
the
probably during election year.
$100 million that we refused to, was that part of it, Doug? Was that the $100 million that we turned down?
So it's good.
I'm not sure.
So yeah, forgive me, but yeah, it was finding number 7 in the cease and desist order, and there's 7A, B, C, D, E, and it's a narrative about rates and about implementing the SHECAP, as I mentioned. It said that at this board meeting, staff recommended this level, and the board approved a much lower level,
What year was that?
2011.
2011.
So
That
it-
was,
That'd be
that
election
was,
year.
that was the year, that was under Brett Richards though, because everything is an emergency, we need
Yeah.
astronomical rate increases. We're also gonna have our own piper steam crew, I mean,
there was also,
we can have Steve Mixes tell us about those days if you like.
right, and then there was
He knows
also
better than we do.
the budget had anticipated being funded by revenue bonds in 2012, but they weren't issued until 2013. So after the cease and desist order was issued. So they mentioned that the revenue bonds were recommended but not issued. So it was another expectation. So actually you can point to this and all your actions in the last 5 years, and, line by line indicate how you've addressed concerns of the cease and desist order that were voiced back in that time. So that's good discussion, but it seems that it was a good interaction and an affirmation of your investments and decisions you've been making over the last few years, which we'll talk about a little bit in the metrics report. And I mentioned the metrics report to the regional board, and they're very interested in it. And I passed out some bound copies to you, and if you find it, if you decide to approve it today, then I will mail one of the bound copies to the regional water board. Okay, so any other questions on that? There'll be more to come. It's now a dialogue that's going on. Number 3, we participated this last week in a study sponsored by CASA. It's in connection with the proposed legislation about the labeling of flushable wipes.
This is very cool.
And CASA enlisted different sanitary districts, cities around the state to participate in a freight and transport study on specific products, including, I have a list here of some of the products. Includes Sesame Street Hushables, Cottonelle flushable wipes, Dude wipes, Handy Bath adult washcloths, dispersible, and scrubbing bubbles, bathroom, flushable wipes, and 2 Japanese products, Japanese wipe number 1 and number 2, and some other things. So on Friday, our staff went out, Steve Mixus was the field general on this, and we brought our condition assessment staff out, and they have protocols that we're following that are consistent with Sacramento Sewer District is another participant, and we're actually a good example for them because of our hillside sewers, and our site that we selected was in Greenbrae along Elysia Drive, and narrow sewers. So we're unique in our own way. We're having a lot of 6-inch sewers. And California is unique that way. But so we have narrow sewers, steep, and actually kind of a turbulent system that should enhance degradation, like with toilet paper, which is one of the. We're also putting toilet paper in the sewer as a control. So it's a scientific study. Why do this? Because industry alleges that these flushable wipes are degradable, and that there isn't a scientific study to prove otherwise. And they say that the rags that we collect at the bar screens at Pump Station 15 and other places are quote-unquote shop towels. That they're kind of, the cotton rags you'll see in an auto shop, or that sort of thing, that a hobbyist in their garage might use. So this will help provide evidence that what we know and what we see. And just a little anecdotal story, that during the setup, and I encourage you, Steve Nicholas, to chime in, but during the setup on Friday, and we did this Monday, we did the study. It was a good thing we colored each of these products, because as we set up to collect them in the downstream manhole about a half-mile away, we were overwhelmed with wipes.
Not part of the study.
Not part of it. So we had to make sure that the wipes that we were collecting had the color coding so that we could identify them.
Is this downstream from like the medical facilities and stuff?
It's off Elysia Drive, and it's basically where the 101 pump station goes up the hill.
It's north.
So not
of
south of Elysia?
Right, it's the
Yeah.
northern.
Elysia.
The other side.
Where
So-
Brentano is up there?
Good question. Yeah, good question, because South Elysia is a whole
Whole
other,
other thing.
whole other thing. So it's north Elysia, north of the Shell Station,
Mhm.
and up at Brentano way, is that how you say it?
Brentano.
Yeah, and that was the downstream end. So we saw them out there. We had, all the safety there. We had the cones and safety vests. And,
Any degradation of flushable?
So the interesting part was, if I may,
Yes.
they were testing out on 8-inch lines and very flat lines, Sacramento and down in San Diego. But we thought if we could show them, it's a violent run. It's an extraordinarily violent run.
Which should break it down.
It should enhance, and if it comes out that they're still intact, it even furthers, what they're trying to do. And it was really cool because Jared with CASA, he came out there and hung out with the guys and us, and all of a sudden just started pulling basically everyone out of the line. Because this is amazing data. So I'm going to finalize the report, send it back to CASA on Friday.
Was there any one of those different colors that was degradable?
There was some damage to a couple of them, but they were
Some
they were
damage.
firm. Yes.
That's not degradable.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
And what does toilet paper do? It just.
It'll evaporate, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's a great.
or evaporate or disperse. Yeah, it doesn't go into the
Well,
air.
break up. It breaks up into
It breaks up into
Into-
micro,
Yeah.
and eventually into degradable.
So we spent an incredible amount of staff hours. We had many SSOs do the wipes. And the fact that we kept catching all of those is we've got a couple ideas of, okay, now we can focus public outreach up this, system. And with the wipes videos coming out again. But again, we spent a lot of time deragging bar screens and all the service calls to do the wipes. So the more action, the more we can do to help this cause, you guys did pretty good.
Did you take any pictures
Yes,
or videos?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
I'd be trying to look at it.
And they put in the landfill? Is that where they end up, or what? What do you do with them once you pull them out?
We put them in, yeah, they go to the landfill.
Yeah,
Then flush them down.
Back to CMSA.
Take them back to the office and flush them.
I will say that in the protocol, it was clear that you put them in a black trash bag and you put them, in the landfill.
Take them into Pachi's.
Yeah, throw it in the dumpster.
Oh, that would be good. They'll never.
So yes, thank you for, Stephen,
And-
for all your efforts.
How many agencies were part of that study?
I don't know.
I think upwards 6 or 7, but we were definitely the smallest.
Is there any flushable wipe that can?
Good works.
I'm told there's some that are made in Israel, that they've done over there.
Okay, like for septic or something?
I don't know the name of it.
One of the things we also learned for the Friday test, most of the shopping centers here do not sell flushable wipes. They sell non-flushable wipes, which are even more stronger.
And people
So-
flush them.
Exactly. So they don't even have the opportunity to buy flushable wipes. So now we're getting the even stronger ones.
Would it make sense, especially after the study is fully vetted with the other agencies, to have this board put forward a request of the board of supervisors that at least stores put signs next to all of these saying they're not flushable? Well, I mean,
I'm not
if
sure
they
the county can
Huh?
force stores to do that.
You can just go in
For
and
stores not to sell
request.
cigarettes or vape
Yeah,
products.
but you can just go in and request from an agency that we don't advise this because of this. We've done that all with Roundup and a lot of hardware stores in Marin County. So I don't see why we couldn't get radical. Well, anyway, it's just an idea.
Is CASA considering floating legislation about this?
Yes.
I mean, that would be
Oh,
the
yes.
best way.
And it's gonna be a major lawsuit.
Yes.
It's a $6 billion a year industry, something like that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's been a subject of a lot of discussion at CASA, and this study is an outgrowth of those discussions, that in order to provide evidence to lawmakers, this study's been commissioned by CASA to it's like most science, prove what we already know. And just really show
I mean,
the evidence for what
I
we're
think the fat burgers they have in the London sewer systems that are sized up against the wheeler are pretty strong evidence that,
It occurs to me you could say anything is flushable, right? You could.
yeah, brick is flushable.
Right. So, along those lines, and you mentioned that, we've been participating in this public service announcements development by our vendor Gold Street. And Stephen Mexis has been working with our Education Outreach Committee, Director Meggs and Director Kelly. And so we had the 3-month run from March to May this year with the Ross Valley logo and message on wipes. And really what not to put in the sewer. So the wipes, the pharmaceuticals, the fats, oils, and grease, the fog, so 3. The 4th one is sump pumps. Really an original idea that we came up with and worked with Gold Street to do an original advertisement on that because of our 6-inch sewer mains. The sump pumps have the potential to overwhelm the system while it's already charged with infiltration and inflow. And others have picked up on that, right? That's been something that Gold Street has made available to other sanitary districts because of our original work. So that's another thing not to put in the sewer is your groundwater, rainwater from your sump pump. And then we also have a 5th that we developed on our lateral ordinance. And that was aired during the pilot phase. On this, what we've set up now, through encouragement by the committee, we reached out to our fellow sanitary districts and over time got commitments to participate in funding the airing of these public service announcements on the Comcast Xfinity cable TV like we did this past spring. And so we thought it was pretty important to do this before the holidays because especially with fog impacts and our track record of having to do service calls on Thanksgiving, because that's a common time when systems are overloaded, either on private property or down in the mains. And so we were able to get everybody's high definition, high resolution logo and review and buy into the new crop of commercials, which are all those, the five, but actually not the lateral ordinance, because that's unique to us. So we did the 4, and we just finalized that, I think even today, and it's uploaded to Comcast Xfinity and ready to launch on Monday, November 25th, for 3 months, with the logos of the partner agencies Director Kelly mentioned, which are CMSA, San Rafael Sanitation District,
Cormadera.
SD1, SD2, Corte Madera, Lovato Sanitary District, and Las Colinas Valley Sanitary District. So it's all the sanitary districts north of Horse Hill, which divides Mill Valley and Corte Madera. And we've been in communication with those south of Horse Hill. They just didn't have the budget on the order of $2,500 to easily spend, because they're working, they have other expenditures this fiscal year, but all 3 are very interested in doing it next fiscal year. So they'll have an opportunity, because they're gonna get the same commercials in their service area as they do in the rest of the county, and they'll see all of our logos up. And then we'll also be looking at the metrics of this. We get some metrics with YouTube, because we get these commercials on YouTube, and we get information about if people skip the ad or if they watch the whole ad. And what we
On
learned-
YouTube or on Comcast?
YouTube, yes. And so we can get metrics on whether the viewer's response. And some initial work that we did, we learned that the wipes video was very well received, that people wouldn't skip ad. They kept watching it all the way to the end.
Well, the other thing is we changed the fog one this time, because what we said the first time is throw your grease or fat in the garbage can, whereas in Marin, it should go in the compost, the green can. So the ad was changed to reflect that. It says, throw it in the garbage or your compost. So,
Either one, better than sewer.
yep,
So
throw the fence.
that's right.
Depending on the neighbor. That's
So
how
we'll
it's-
see how it goes, and whatever metrics are collected, and we'll share it, and if it continues to be of interest, we can renew, for another 3 months or 6 months, and with more partners, we can work with Gold Street to put more logos on if that's popular. But it's nice to have a unified message.
Are we gonna think about, well, we should talk about it at our meeting, but we mentioned taking it to the theaters too, right? But that's our next meeting.
Yes,
So you're on it, aren't
I'm
you?
on it. And libraries.
Yeah.
What was the cost for 3 months?
Well, I have,
It's 15,000.
15,000, we share that.
and we share that right now
6
with
ways.
6. But again, if you did it by 9, and then you divide it by the months as opposed to the 3 months, if all 9 are in, it's $572 ongoing a month. That's very much worth it. I think we recoup our money on that, on less labor and repairs and everything.
Less service calls, yeah, that's a big deal. We have our 24/7, 365, and we'll get service calls due to wipes or fog, and then the sump pumps are an issue in wet weather. And then we're concerned about the pharmaceuticals because we don't want that to affect the discharge quality out of CMSA.
And it's something we're supposed to do anyway.
Right.
We should be doing it.
All right.
That's it?
Oh, yes, well, we mentioned pump station 15 Kentfield, just to reiterate, we passed, on November 7th, we did a lot of high-level alarm testing. It all worked great with our new VFDs, variable frequency drives, which are a big improvement on our reliability and efficiency, just effectiveness, helps CMSA in terms of the timing of flows to the treatment plant. And so no problems on that day. That was before the weekend, so our true 7-day test began the following week. And went from Tuesday, November 12th, after Veterans Day, through a couple days ago. And that worked great. So really, at this point, as Chris Davenport mentioned, the true test will be on the high flows and wet weather when we're using our large pumps. And it's a good reminder that Kentfield Pump Station is designed to pass 10-fold flows, the peaking, even more. It's over plus 10 times the dry weather flow. So we have 2 steady dry weather pumps that are smaller and 3 large wet weather pumps that have been, that, you know, are still in service but have new drives associated with them. And so to really test it, we have to get the big wet weather that hasn't come yet. So, but we feel confident going in. Director Meggs mentioned interest in the field trip of our recent infrastructure improvements. And we did the ribbon cutting where we had tours of Pump Station 12, and that was a great event. We still have Pump Station 13 and 15, and it might be of interest to look at 14, our other major pump station across the street over here, because it's a good example of what additional work we should be doing, and if you want to throw that in on the tour. And we could drive down beautifully paved streets where we did the capital work this summer that now look like idyllic village scene with a brand new paving. But that's, you can't see unless we start opening manholes. You're not going to see a whole lot there. It's all underground. But we can come together, come up with a tour. And if I was in talking with Director Meggs, it occurred to me, well, maybe the rest of the board would be interested. And so if we do it all at once, then we need and the clerk of the board to inform us about what the logistics are of doing that. We have to notice it. We have to invite the public. And it's all possible. But we also could do several field trips if there's interest. And so we wanted to, as staff, make this opportunity available to all the board, and we'll come up with a plan to do it. So we wanted to encourage discussion about that if you're interested.
Thanks. Where are the streets, by the way? What streets are they? I didn't know.
Poplar and Ross.
The San Selmo, right?
In back of,
Doug? San Selmo Street? So that's the new streets that we did.
Well, San Francisco.
San Francisco is brand new.
San
San
Woodland,
Selmo
Ross.
gets-
Broadmoor,
San
Broadmoor is
Selmo.
not Broadmoor. Brookside
San
was
Selmo.
not.
It's all based on the IAMD.
You're on the streets.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, as you noted, they're all over. But the latest one is Shady Lane and
Oh,
Poplar.
Oh, you're right, that's.
And Roscommon.
I just drove down that.
That's a nice one. And then we're still working on Butterfield.
Yeah, because that was not the last meeting, but the meeting before. I went home via that road, only to get to the end of the road and realize
Turn
I
around.
had to go all the way back. It's a big bulldozer in the middle of the road.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Yeah, I know, it was great.
Well, it was dug up for a while.
Yeah.
And there was a town meeting, pretty well, because the people realized they were gonna get their lower laterals
Yes.
put in.
Yep.
$1,000 for it.
Yeah, that's what happened on San Francisco Boulevard as well.
Is there interest in all 5 board members, or would you like us just to arrange 2 at a time?
The problem with 5 is it's got to be a public notice
So
meeting.
you would be public, you know,
There's more.
the public could come too.
If that's the case, then I think it'd be great to do it that way.
Yeah, because of less staff.
Less time, yeah, less staff time.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the logistics and communicate to the board.
Yeah, because that would be like a special board meeting and all that. And, there are safety issues in getting into these pump stations, and from a logistics standpoint, having a lot of public go along with the board, it's an order of magnitude more complexity for staff, but possible.
I don't have a particular strong feeling one way or another. I don't want staff time to be wasted. If you feel one is more expensive or more challenging than the other, I rely on the advice of the general manager.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward 2 at a time.
2 at a time.
And so far as, am I seeing interest from all 5
Yeah.
in doing it?
A lot of competing priorities.
Right, good. Well, this is where we want to be responsive to what the board is interested in. But since we had interest expressed by one, I thought it was appropriate to bring it forward to all.
Well, if it's only me, we'll cut it short.
Well, I don't think it's only you.
Oh, okay. I don't know, I'm not hearing the people jumping up and down.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can see it. They're jumping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But not maybe the board members sitting there. Very good. Okay, this has been going on for a while. But you did ask for the Comcast building update.
Yes.
And we don't have any late-breaking news, but we did transmit our proposal, and really we're down to what the entrance looks like into the building toward the elevator, the second floor where we would go. So we have transmitted that proposal to Comcast and are waiting for their response.
And
All
they
the
did
other
pay
issues
the
we
property
have agreed.
taxes.
What's that?
And they did pay the property taxes.
They did.
Which was $100,000?
It was
It's really nice of them.
Yeah.
Is there a way to bring back before this board some suggestions on the beginnings of a renovation plan for upstairs? I mean, why do we need to wait on that?
Oh, we are not waiting. We are working on that, and it's really, it's part of the business plan, and we have a date in there to try to, have closure on that, so we have an architect.
And will there be directors' offices up there or something?
No?
That's what I meant.
Well, it might be, it's maybe worth mentioning that this meeting here tonight at CMPA, up until about 3:30 yesterday, was going to have to be moved across the street because of the power outage. And so that's another reason for us to move into the 1111 Anderson, to have a board meeting room where we don't have to worry about power outages moving our place in the meeting.
And if I may, at least we should bring this before the board, I can't make any assumptions, but, and have a board meeting set up in such a manner that it facilitates live filming by Marin TV, as many of the other agencies do.
Yeah.
I think that live filming, it's more professional, and this is great, but sometimes people say they can't hear the speakers very well. So I'd like that building. That building was set up that way in the first place, so it's got all the necessary, it doesn't have the equipment because it was taken out, but that can be easily put back in. So I'd like to live stream.
We'll talk about that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. I think we've covered a lot there. Sorry, everybody.
Consent calendar. Matters listed under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. The consent calendar may include resolutions, therefore the motion, second, and vote will also be applicable to the resolutions and recorded accordingly. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the board or the public prior to the time the board votes on the motion to adopt. Would any of the board members like to pull anything?
Yeah,
Okay, Ben.
A, B, D, E, F.
A, B, D, E, F. Okay, A.
Does anybody else want to? On the minutes, page 7 of 124, at the very bottom, the last sentence, it says this was the item that Mary had requested to continue, and it was not stated in here, and I'm just wondering if we could throw that word in there. It says for discussion and direction only, but I remember hearing, and correct me, Mary, if I'm wrong, but I thought you said, can we continue this? And I thought that was the ending of that, but.
I think we discussed continuing it, I don't remember
If we
whether,
voted,
I don't remember whether that was what we did, or if it's, I mean, it's semantics, isn't it?
That phrase is largely for semantics to demarcate whether there was an official vote on whether to adopt or accept or something like that, or just.
so there was
discussion and
not.
direction.
There was not.
Correct. There was a
Okay,
vote.
I get it, thank you.
B.
On B. I'll talk about that. Okay, there's some line items on the cash report, starting on page 16 of 24. I was curious on this item for supplemental insurance. Can you,
Line number?
line number 16 or 17, the principal's number? I'm just curious, do you know what that is? American Fidelity Assurance. It's called insurance.
Usually supplemental insurance is.
I don't know.
May I have the information?
Sure.
American Fidelity provides supplemental plans that you can opt into annually, such as flexible health spending and other things like that.
Yeah, it's just part of the employee benefits.
So is this for one employee, is this for the whole?
I believe it's offered to all employees.
Okay, so that figures for all of the employees.
I am not sure about the.
We'll
Yeah,
have to get back to you.
What?
We'll have to get back to you.
Yeah, okay, because Felicia would know, right? Okay. Maybe I should I just wait on these line items, or do you want me to continue since Felicia's not here?
You know, in general, I think we should wait because Felicia's not here. And in general, Felicia's available before the meeting to answer those questions, if you're ready to ask those beforehand.
Wasn't
I
it,
emailed Felicia's out to the 25th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If it's okay, maybe, we went through it in the finance committee.
You did?
Yeah, we went through it. We looked at all of them.
didn't we decide earlier that if you have a question on one of these line items, you should call?
Well, that's what she was saying, is that she emailed to Felicia, but Felicia's gone.
Oh.
So, but
But
So
in
there-
general,
wait.
in general, that's what we said.
So there is like this sort of, not policy, but practice, you try and notify them. I can do that.
Yeah. You try and do it, and then if there's a question, you have to bring it up.
Okay, I didn't know she wasn't going to be here.
yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. And then, moving on to, is it D?
Yeah, Dee?
I had a question about Newt, Steve. This is a contract with Newt for $159,000, right?
Wait, we're on D right now.
Oops, sorry. Oh, on this item, it talks about the 4-year terms coming up. But we don't have 3 director seats coming up, we have 2.
I apologize, that's a typo.
Okay, I just wanted to know if we're on the same page. And then I wanted to ask, the 45,000, is that just us that pays for the 45,000? It says in the report.
It's
the
our
district-
share.
That's our share.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, that's all on that. And then on E, I have a question about, I'm just curious, are we using new engineering primarily, or are we asking other agencies? Because this contract's for $159,000. I thought we had something about RFPs that kick in at a certain amount. Am I right or wrong?
There's no set policy on that.
But I'm curious, that's a lot of money, why we wouldn't do an RFP?
Well, we have the discretion to do professional services for that amount, based on factors such as track record and expertise. And so staff has the ability to make a recommendation to the board based on certain criteria. So in this case, I explained in the staff report, but I can also explain what I said at the finance committee, which was there was a placeholder for design budget on this project that the previous in-house manager, Kathleen Hayden, had a placeholder for budget. And so we asked for professional services for letter proposals. And you have the letter proposal attached here. And so my recommendation to you is to award this contract because the budget amount for this work was in excess of $300,000. And so the new proposal would come in at this low level, and with their qualifications and the responsiveness on the recent 9 Summit project, which is also on the agenda and being put to bed in a remarkably efficient and effective way, my recommendation to you is to award this design project to Newt Engineering for all those factors.
And in Finance Committee, you told us that for bigger projects, you would identify a number of firms and go out for RFPs.
Yes, for instance, we are currently going to accept 3 RFPs, or we contacted 3 firms to submit letter proposals on the next wave of gravity sewer projects. And we gave them the date of the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we'll be receiving letter proposals from more than one firm for that particular, because it's a larger budget.
Okay.
F,
F, I don't
the appropriation limit.
know. Is this, I don't quite understand what the appropriate budget, do you, can
Do you
you?
remember a
say
few years
this-
ago, Pam?
I do kind
Okay.
of, but I guess it's something that just keeps coming back to us every year, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we had to go back, how many years did we have to go back?
Well, since 1980, you had to do, because it's for your property tax.
Yeah.
It was if you're raising more property tax than you need, the state wants to reallocate it. So they've set up this rule on your appropriation, and we're way under our appropriation.
Okay, thank you for that.
But we have to update it every year.
Thank you for that explanation. That's all.
Anybody else?
So
Do I hear a motion?
I move we accept the consent calendar. There isn't any amendments you have, Pam.
No.
I move we accept the consent calendar.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We need to do a roll call with any of that? Okay. We done? Consideration of adopting the fiscal year 2019-20 business plan.
Okay, the business plan, as we discussed back last time in February, was developed as, I would say, an annual plan that implements the strategic plan, which you all adopted back in 2016. So it's a new concept. It's been in place for a couple of years. Greg Norby did the first one, and then the second one, Felicia, as acting general manager, put together in the summer of 2018, working with the business plan committee, which was then reformulated, the same board members reformulated the business plan committee for this year. So this is the 3rd iteration. And what we tried to do is take those general effective utility management principles from the strategic plan and call out certain objectives from there, and then link that to activities that we're conducting that might not be sort of our core, day-to-day business items, but a little outside of the norm, and that we should make sure that there's a manager and staff that is responsible for this item being addressed. And so Felicia, as acting general manager, put in the managers responsible for these things. And so I've carried forward that model here. We did the status updates in February, and so as Director Kelly and Meg noted, we met twice in October. And at the first meeting, we went over the February board item because there were status updates on all those items in that business plan, and many of which have come to conclusion. And examples are adopting 5-year sewer rates, adopting a 5-year labor agreement, completing the administrative personnel policy handbook, which was done before I got here, but actually played a really important role in informing the successful update of the MOU because of its more precise and clear language. So those tasks we went over in the first meeting, and then the second business plan meeting, I brought a draft which looks a lot like what you have here in your package. We made some minor changes to that, but based on discussion at the first meeting, I drafted this proposed business plan. And there was, we deleted a lot of things and we added some new things. And we also added some things we were doing anyway, but wanted to highlight, such as the metrics report, which is on today. And so, which is a little outside of the normal business, but it's a good thing to do because we feel that it may actually inform our relationship with the regional water board and formulate, expectations based on things we measure. So, that's some of the background. Oh yeah, and also walking through, I think it's of note, we've talked about it a little bit, that the business plan items from last year include dealing with facilities issues, right? We have our 4 locations where we're doing things, and back at that time, by putting it in the business plan, staff made bandwidth and time available and contract resources available to hire Mark, Mike, Frank, and go through that process that led ultimately to the successful purchase of the 1111 Anderson property. So this year's business plan lays out what are the remaining items on that. Not to do a facility study, that's off the list. Now, we're finalizing the lease with Comcast, as we discussed today. We're designing the new space and building it, as we discussed today. And so and then ultimately, that's on that issue. And then take Larkspur Landing. We need to get EPA approval. Well, now we got EPA approval. Not only that, we put the project out to bid and got 3/4 of it done. So where are we at on that? We still need to complete the remediation, but then, as we talked about, we should enlist real estate services that assist the district in the property disposition. Now that discussion should get underway. And we talked about maybe a February timeframe for actually getting that underway. And to have that public discussion about property disposition and as many other special districts and cities and even private property owners have done in complex settings, hiring on folks that have experience and can advise you and us in the way to do things in the most responsible and transparent way. That works cooperatively with the city of Larkspur. So we touched on that a little bit, but so that becomes now a business plan item. This is not normal sewer business. This is getting assistance from people who know what they're doing to get the highest, best value for the district and its ratepayers. So those are some examples. We also are doing lots of, if you walk through the business plan, on the high level, the EUM attributes, the strategic plan areas, are stakeholder understanding and support, customer service, employee and leadership development, enterprise resiliency, financial viability and sustainability, infrastructure strategy and performance, operational optimization, and water resources and community sustainability. And in all those different attributes I just read aloud, we have several items that we're working on that fit within those areas. And, just to wrap things up, here at the very end, when we talk about water resources and community sustainability, that's where what we work on can overlap with the vision and strategic plan of the North Bay Watershed Association. That's where Ross Valley Sanitary District can kind of find its way into one water and multi-benefit project and justify it. And by your approving it in the business plan, you give staff the space to work on those things that are outside of the core collection system management issues. Because we touch those things. And the last line on page 63 of 124 is remove abandoned sewer from stream bed at Ross Creek and Shady Lane. Planning, design, funding for controlling and construction. We just got done putting in a siphon under that creek. And now there's an abandoned unused sewer that's sitting smack in the middle of the creek bed. It doesn't look that good. And it causes issues. And it is a fish barrier. It's a barrier to fish migration when, according to Derrick Creek, is restored. Then there would be a fish passage that they wouldn't be able to get up this creek because of this remnant sewer. So this is an example where we can meet multiple benefits of not having a potential sewer spill, but also creating future fish passage that benefits the creek environment. And that's something that fits in the North Bay Watershed Partnership. So anyway, I bring that up as something that's not core work. The collection system doesn't have to do that. The permit we got for going under the creek with the new sewer did not require us to remove this thing. So by putting in the business plan, you as a district are saying, we don't have to do it, but we want to do it, and we're going to empower staff to make it happen.
We did suggest to at the business plan meeting that we seek any possible grants that might be available, because that is a improvement to nature. And so while we'll do it, if we can be helped, we're certainly willing to accept help financially.
I appreciate that, and, that even though we may not be an economically disadvantaged area of the state, we still can qualify for grants or loans. And so we'll certainly be looking at that as a package, because we have a summer of 2021 target, so you have time to try to apply. And, in a similar note, we didn't talk about it, but, as we close out 9th Summit, that emergency, we figured out along the way there was a connection to a FEMA storm that caused the original landslide that 3 months later led to a sewer problem that we were managing. So we're in the process of trying to get a reimbursement for those amounts. It's not a done deal. We had to appeal, but we're working through that, and hope, so we'll always, at the staff level, we really should be always looking out for ways to enhance our funding beyond just the ratepayers and the revenue ones.
The Finance Committee, I just noticed one little thing that we requested, is that actually on the very first item, we divide Murray Park and San Quentin Village into two separate issues, rather than, they are two separate issues, but make two separate boxes.
In other words, you're going to be able to accomplish one.
And not the same time as the other.
Yeah, the other one's quite difficult.
And under the financial viability sustainability,
That'd be page 59.
the 59, we're trying to increase our credit rating. We've done that successfully 3 times in the last 5 years, is it? 4 times in the last 5 years. We think we can do it again. And maybe when we pay back some of the bonds, if we are able, if the public wants us to, and if we dispose of the Larkspur Landing property, we have a very good opportunity to continue to increase our bond ratings. But the fact that it's increased, I thought it was 3 or 4 times, really goes to the heart of the management and this board doing the right thing for the last 4 years. I don't know about before that, but the last 4 years. Nobody's small about it for you. They got it.
My comment, okay.
Okay. I reviewed my notes, and I remember, and I wrote it down, on page 57 of 124, the very top, it says leadership initiative to encourage a high-performing culture based on positive behaviors. And what I have is then, I thought we had agreed on this, but maybe I'm wrong, for all staff. So maybe it's redundant or a given, but I have that in my notes. And I could not find, well, I had a problem with the red line thing. And then, I have it on page.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
First?
I just think it makes it full or clear.
Yeah, and so it does apply to all staff, I'll just say that. And this is something that Jim McPherson, our competency-based training consultant, has helped with. And Greg Norby originally set it up. And yeah, it is focused on the supervisor and above, in terms of leadership, because that's the idea, is that from that level, but you have people reporting to you.
Right.
And so you need to model the behaviors, which is things, what do we mean by behaviors? We mean like response time, customer service, responsiveness. When something comes up, our heads in the game. And meeting commitment. That's a behavior. It's not just a value. It's like you make a commitment. You call someone at a 9 o'clock meeting. You call them, not at 9:10. Those kind of things. So those behaviors are important for leadership within the organization at the supervisor and above level. And so we've had these meetings to talk about, and I think we all coalesced around the principles of accountability and ownership. And we continue to discuss those issues in these periodic meetings on it. And so this was going on, And I participated in it, starting this year, and thought it was positive, this was a good set of things for us to, at the supervisor manager levels, to talk about. And I thought, well, this should be recognized in the business plan, because it's something that's a little outside of the normal day-to-day. We're doing it, and so that's why I was putting it in here.
We could say a high-performing, district-wide
That's good,
culture.
that's great. Something that is inclusive. That's fine, that sounds good. And by the way, I want to appreciate Steve and Felicia, because I'm really happy that that one of the items that I brought up was to look at dates. Because a lot of them are kind of open-ended, and I understand it's always ongoing, but to wrap up with these dates, it gives us more of a vision and where we've been and where we're going, and sometimes these things, like you said, are resolved. So then on the employee and leadership development, is that the same one?
Same one.
I have a note in my notes, and they're cryptic. Something in, and maybe this is not the right format, but I have this note about employees being able to evaluate their management. And I don't know if this is the right place, and I believe it would be one of the attributes. But this is here. So I'm not sure, I don't think that would be an our employees' policy book, right? But we don't have it stated anywhere.
I also don't think it's considered a best practice.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
people had idea of a 360-degree review 5-10 years ago, and it's fraught. So, I mean, I would defer to our HR, but I don't think it should be in here, and don't think it would be a good idea.
Having reviewed other special districts in Marin County, they are doing that, but that's fine. Let it go. Okay, that's it, all I have.
I mean, instead of doing the initials of the people, I actually want it would be, because I was looking,
There is a table.
Particularly because there's an SMM and there's an SIM.
yeah, I would say GM, general manager, and F, and AM, fancy administration manager,
Assistant general
or
manager.
AGM, or something like that. I would rather have the titles
Yeah,
in
that's a
here
good
than
idea.
people's initials. That's one.
That's a good
Because
idea.
my first question, who's
Yeah,
that
it's
one?
on the back.
I know it's on the back, but of course I went through it and then found it on the back. The other thing I wanted to say was, on page 62, one of the OCLP would be the business systems analyst.
Where are you?
Patrick Philippine.
Patrick
Philippelli.
Philippelli would be actually, instead of that, business systems analyst. But anyway, I'd rather prefer the titles. I'm surprised we didn't put in relocate to 111 Anderson. Is that going to happen this year?
Well, that's what I ask, is that, so if are we gonna be, are we going to have completed the upgrades and design by November 26th?
That's the goal.
Okay, so relocate to 111 Anderson, then could we put that in there? Or is
So
it?
yeah, you could put design, construction, and relocation. That's everything.
Well, no, those are three different.
Design and construction.
Design and construction is one.
Well, I guess just for what it's worth, this is just this is an organizing table. It isn't a scope of work or a contract with us, so this is just a general tracking system, so we're aware, that we're not letting something drop through the cracks. So I don't, I hear you on splitting out the different annexations, but all we were saying is, hey, we've got to pay attention to annexation issues generally.
Sure.
So,
Right.
that's my feedback, is I think, we don't want to necessarily get too worried about different boxes.
Well, I think if you talk about.
Ribbon cutting ceremony, November 20th.
No.
Yeah, if you have November
That'd be a
2020,
horrible
it's
time.
down to be probably moving in
It's
2021.
not gonna get done
So
anyway.
this is not the 20.
That's right. And I would
So
have
you've
just,
got to.
We can put, we can put relocation, because I'll say that was the intent, is that, because that's.
In November
that's-
2020?
Yeah, that's a time we want to do, because we're renting
Common
the warehouse on,
that's right.
and that lease is up at that time. And we don't want to string this out, you know, I think staff, you know, doesn't like, would like more certainty in the future, you know, in terms of where they go to work every day, this affects them and their psychology. And so, you know, we're really committed to November 2020.
So we should probably clarify that.
So I could put relocation on it.
Anything else?
I'd like to point out one of the other things that we made a point of, and that is on page 59 again. We talked about the funding plan for pension and OPEB liabilities. We're not dodging this at all. We're facing this. We face it as part of the rate increase process. And what we asked is, yeah, now that we have a plan, we need to have annual updates, real time with our GovInvest software to make sure we're hitting our targets. And if not, do we need to finesse, do we need to adjust, or do we need to reassess everything? So it's important that we're going to be getting annual updates on the OPEB and pension liability in real time, real actuary numbers from our GovInvest software. That's the plan. And so that will be on the agenda once a year,
Okay. But
at
shouldn't
least,
It
by the
says
way.
that.
Shouldn't it be continued funding plans?
Again, I don't think this is a narrative. This is a
Or
bullet point.
ongoing?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mind if we change the words, but we understand what we're saying here.
Okay.
This is a good example, you know, Director Banks brought up specific dates, and so you can put ongoing on here, but the original plan was adopted by the board in April of 2019. So I went in and put April 2020,
Yeah.
and that way, you've got, you know, you can, when you have questions, say, when are we gonna get around to doing that? You can look at this table and say, okay, I should expect us to have a board item on that for thereabouts.
Right.
Anybody from the public? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move, let me go back to the agenda so I can do that correctly.
Yeah, so before, I just want to let the board know I've been taking notes, and so if you could make a motion with the changes that have been discussed, and that would include splitting, you know, the annexation, adding district-wide to the leadership initiative, adding relocation to 1111 Anderson Design and Construction. I've got that so far.
I would so move with those
Changing
notes
the
in mind.
initials to the,
Oh, the initials to the title. Well, and on that point,
or whatever works best for staff.
no, it's okay, I encourage the discussion on that. I think the intent, what I was carrying forward, that the Assistant General Manager of Newhouse suggested in the first place was, this helps provide everyone a point of contact in the real time. So right now, sort of these issues, you know, these are the managers and in some cases some staff that you can think of to contact if you're, or to refer to if you're interested in that issue. If you put the titles, it might be that extra level of complexity, you know, who is it? You know, oh, we gotta talk to the GM about that, because in the future, that item might not be handled by the GM. That might just because right now, that's who's handling it. But, you know, in the future, it might not be that. You know,
Okay, if you look, let's leave it there.
yeah, but I'm, you know, we could do that for the next update.
We'll talk.
And the business committee.
Kind of puts the person.
No, I understand.
This is the one.
Yeah, talk to that person.
As opposed to it's associated with the role, like inherently.
Right.
Thousands of employees. It would be tough to remember.
You know, in terms of the future, and because, you know, we have had this, you know, Catherine Hayden vacancy as an example. What does that, you know, what does that change look like in terms of the same job position or a different one? And we're going to talk about that in the next couple of months on what does our organization look like. Then that person who ends up coming in may have a skill set, you know, like our clerk of the board, Julia McKenty, has a skill set, so she's recognized in the business plan of dealing with records management. You know, it wouldn't necessarily be a clerk of the board function, but she is the go-to person in our organization to deal with that issue.
Mhm.
So just to give you an example, you know, there is a method to the madness on that.
Okay. With those notes and comments in mind, I would move to accept the year-end metrics report for fiscal year 2019.
That's not what we're on. I'll take it, but we're on the next.
I'm sorry, considering the adoption of the fiscal, I'm saying, how are we doing 2018, 2019? That's why I stopped on that. Considering, I would move to adopt the fiscal year 2019-20 business plan. Thanks.
So,
All in favor?
With the changes.
Aye.
Yes, that's how I was saying
Okay,
that.
very good, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Adopted.
that's a good.
Item 12. Yeah, very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consideration of accepting the year-end metrics report for fiscal year 2018-19. Yay, Steve. Both Steves.
And Patrick, too.
And Patrick.
Yes, very good.
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 Not here.
And Steve.
Accepting for Steve. Accepting for Patrick.
I don't know if we have, I want a little prop, thank you. So, we had some bound copies made to hand out to your friends, and bring to holiday parties to distribute.
Stocking stuffer.
Stocking stuffer.
stuffers. But in all seriousness, this began a year ago. It was at my first board meeting with you, and I had, not a lot of time to review it at that time, but I did present it to you. It was my first presentation to you, was this metrics report. And at the time, it was nice to learn that we were on the cutting edge. It was the first of its kind last year. And so, and I mentioned at that time, this really is a good articulation of asset management and using data to drive decision-making, which is really a buzzword out there these days, but it's meaningful. That when we go to the regional board and say, we want to take these projects off the list and add these projects for these reasons based on this data, it's going to be a very effective way to get our requirements altered because it's based on common sense. This has a mixture of measurements that are outputs and outcomes. Outputs are things we pejoratively talk about bean counting, but it's how many permits have we issued? How many how many feet of line have we maintained? How many point repairs have we conducted? What does that translate in terms of length of pipe that's now restored and functional? That starts to get into the outcomes, in terms of how many, when we camera the whole system, how many defects of the worst nature, grade 5 defects, do we see? And that's an outcome of our activities to do capital work, repair, and maintain the lines. So that's what this privilege of information gets into, and it gets into some nice detail on things that you care about very strongly, like the lateral program. And putting that in context, what towns are taking advantage of this? How many of these do we do a year? How many grants and loans are we providing for laterals? And in this report, for the first time, in the narrative, I talked about, well, the miles of lateral that have been repaired, how does that compare to the miles of capital work year by year, or the miles of repair year by year we've done? And the punchline is, it exceeds it. There's actually more miles of lateral put in the ground by this district than the remarkable amount of capital and repair we've achieved. It's all documented in this report. And so
In this year?
Yeah.
yeah, 8.7 miles, compared to, it was either six miles of capital and repair last year, and it was even more than previous, like 12 miles. It jumps around, but the average laterals actually exceeded the remarkable amount of capital and repair that were accomplished. Just one of the little nuggets in this report. So, anyway, I know I'm going on. But the importance of this is it really benchmarks our outputs and the outcomes we're trying to do. Early in the report, and it's something you note in the monthly metrics reports, we have the flow calculations, and we look at, okay, if we apply some assumptions, what percent of the rain that falls on this watershed ends up in the sewer? What percent ends up in the sewer? And Patrick helped with the analytics on that. And we have a table, which is early in the report,
Page 10.
which is page 10, wet weather INI volume. And it's interesting, so many factors go into this calculation. A lot of stuff. And, you know, when we did the 3-year report, we showed this pretty favorable trend that even with the wet year and fiscal year, so we're looking at table 2, the wet year, fiscal year 16-17, we had a reduction in percent of rainwater in the system. Because that would translate because based on our capital work on the system. So remember, it's a percentage, so the volume is still higher, as you can see in the table. But the percent that actually got in the sewer was lower than the previous year. And then we saw that continue next year, and we thought, oh, this is a really meaningful output number. Well, this year it went up, right? But it's still below the original baseline year of 15-16 by some percentage. So I think by honestly reporting this analysis, we show, hey, it's not just a straight line improvement. There's a lot of factors out there, you know, that influence how
Well, I
water
think,
takes into sewer.
and that's in here somewhere, the amount of rain and the volume of rain and the timing of rain. So when you have an inch an hour, that's different than the same amount of rain over a 24-hour period.
Right.
But if it's all in a 15-minute period, you're going to have a different result.
Yeah, that's right. There's dynamics in that. It's very, it's not a static or a linear function.
That's right.
It's non-linear, and so, and it's the type of trend that you're going to look at on a decade scale. You know, you're not really going to look year to year necessarily. It's not that sensitive. But over time, these investments and commitments should show this percentage of rainfall in the sewer. It doesn't mean it will go up in the storm system. And it does mean, you know, there's a need to coordinate our work with the towns in the county and work cooperatively on their management of their storm system. Because we're actually, these numbers show we're a big part of the drainage system in Ross Valley. And so as we exclude that water, it has to go somewhere. So I think, you know, we need to be mindful that that's a part of the water cycle, and that's part of that North Bay Watershed Association thinking. And we're partners in this, and we want to work with the town and county about how we integrate storm and sanitary systems. So anyway, it's we went from a 3-year window to a 4-year window in many of our metrics, and they each tell a different story. You know, and Steve Mixes is here and worked really hard on metrics and using and moving toward a data-driven operational maintenance system here that we can really be proud of. And the things that he's tracking, you know, in terms of looking at the issue, and you can, if you want to describe it, Stephen, feel free. I think it's real important to point that most collection systems will just have a list of problem pipes that they'll just clean on a certain frequency without actually studying through camera work what if it really is needed. So they'll check the box and move on. Well, you can have unintended consequences of actually reducing the longevity of your system by over cleaning it, especially if it's clay, like 76% of our system. It's vulnerable to jetting and the forces of cleaning. And so one of the metrics he came up with was this idea of pipe cleaned unnecessarily. And we do this by data collection in the field. We have a collector, a lot like what we collected the wipes with in our science study. We collect debris when we clean. And if we document that we're not getting any in the basket, we change the frequency of cleaning. And that creates more efficiency, less unnecessary cleaning, and really translates to more longevity for the system. But do you have any more
Unless staff
insight?
wasted time. I mean, if you're cleaning it, it doesn't mean clean, you're not doing something else.
Right, exactly. But anything to add, any stories you want to tell?
If you're on page 16, you'll notice that every 2 years there's a dramatic drop. And that's because the pipes have to go through a 2-year cycle. So there's evidence that supports our decision making and has time. And then we basically take it off the high frequency cleaning lines. Because a lot of O&M managers will say, I got a 1.5 million feet of cleaning done last year. And my retort always back to them is, how much did you need to do? And it confuses them, they're like, what? Because all you really do, when you put a 30-pound, 40-pound nozzle through a line, you're breaking clay. Now I'm causing more grade 5 defects, and the cycle continues. I want to end that cycle or mitigate as much as possible. So Raphael's ARC has done an amazing job with the reduction of all the high frequency cleaning.
Yeah, and there's a nice visual that you put together on figure 10, page 15, which shows this evolution of the frequency of pipe cleaning. We had the 1-year lines is the blue. We're moving a lot of those into 3-year, which is the green. And you'll see that
Page one?
that's page 15.
15 or 43.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
And so that's a metric we're going to be tracking over time. That is an indication of efficiency. And we'll have that, that benefit for
On
extended
that chart,
lifespan.
how have we reduced the high frequency cleaning? You know, it's been,
Through point repairs, using camera systems, we use acoustic devices now that we can basically measure a pipe within 90 seconds and not have to clean. So by you guys allowing us to have the technology, we're getting a lot better and have multiple tiers and criteria for each pipe asset to pass into and reduce it. So the goal is to shrink, obviously shrink the orange, definitely shrink the blue, and increase the 3-year clean.
And then even the 5-year, I mean, getting into the gray,
Yeah.
and increasing that over time. And that takes time, we need to do
and that's
evaluation.
going up. Yeah.
Great reminder there, Stephen, and we've been in the GM bulletin sharing with you all and the public some of these details. So we wrote about this SL RAT system, and so instead of running a camera down the line, we do an acoustic signal. And we shared this with SD2, Corte Madera, and
Huge success.
they were so happy to learn about this technology because they were very intimidated with having to do a camera on their lines for the first time. They were behind where we are. We shared this technology with them, and they were able to do condition assessment on a rapid scale. And I think they were under pressure from the regional water board.
Yes, and they prevented, I think, over 30 overflows.
Yeah, so that was just, instead of running a camera down, which is possible, but it takes more time, you run this acoustic signal through, and you know whether there's blockages.
That's Corte Madera?
Yeah.
And that's us.
Yeah,
And in fact, we pioneered it,
Right.
and they benefited from it.
You can include that as another metric. How many overflows did we prevent in
No,
other
that's
districts?
What's that?
How many another metric, how many overflows did we help prevent in districts other
Oh,
than
there's
ours?
that.
Oh, other than ours. Because on page 17,
Yeah.
on page 17, we have potential future SSOs prevented
Oh, yeah.
metric that we're tracking that tracks with soft blockages. And so that's the idea that we're,
And the GM's absolutely correct. This is where the wipes comes in. And we get the wipes get compacted, they get behind roots, and then you start getting a soft blockage. So that is definitely, we're putting a huge amount of effort to wind that down below 0.
so yeah, trying to get that down, but also it shows that we're remedying something that we're finding during line cleaning. But if we're finding less and less of it, then we're doing something right.
Yes.
And it probably integrates some of our educational efforts,
Yes.
in terms of getting the word out on what not to put down the sewer. We hope that this goes down. This will be a way for us to track if those educational efforts are having an effect, as well as our preventative efforts. It's an integrator of those things.
You know, I told Doug that, your business plan of getting an upgraded rating.
Yep.
This is the really great material to send to the rating agencies.
Yes.
That you're working on being more efficient. You know, I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Whereas news clippings about our drama used to be included.
And insert those.
All right.
So good, yeah, so we're going to continue to do this. We're working on, yeah.
Somewhere in here, is there anything about the smart meters?
No.
No.
Manhole covers, you.
Yeah, but there's different,
Different covers.
there's metrics of what we're learning from
We're
smart
getting
meters.
metrics, working on the new INT with HDR, and they have our smart cover data.
Okay.
But this is going to continue to grow over the course of the years while we have new technologies. And for instance, smoke testing, GPSing of manholes, there's all kinds of stuff that this will grow.
You know,
Right.
that would be a good thing to write up next year.
Yes.
Is your technology. You know, we have this equipment.
The audio
that.
We're doing presentations all the time on what we're doing, and the supervisors are all participating, and our name is getting all over California and the West Coast now.
We'll definitely add metrics,
Yes.
just to reinforce what you're saying. And one of the examples is gonna be recycled water.
Yes.
Because we began water recycling in August for sewer cleaning. I didn't mention in my GM report, but we just last week added the second truck. So we had a run ramjet, and we were doing pilot testing on it, and Rafael Zarco is convinced, our line maintenance supervisor is convinced this is working, and he outfitted the second ramjet for recycled water. So it's gotten off the ground, so we're gonna be tracking that, and, we'll throw in the dust control metrics with our cleanup site, so you have an idea of accounting of how much recycled water we've used. And that's just an offset to potable, so we've saved all that hydrant water.
What has to be done to,
You have to keep them separated, so they have to be replumbed, so you don't contaminate when you go back and fill up the hydrant. So you have to have a separate air gap. It's just protecting the water.
so it does both, or so you can go back and forth?
Yeah, but we got some guys that know how to fabricate anything. So if the truck is up and running.
Right, meaning that they're handy people, and they can fix equipment.
Go ahead.
Not just spin a yarn.
Oh, I understood. I didn't think it was stories.
Page 37, figure 33, yay for us over the past 10 years. The funding and lateral replacement, which is funds to date and miles to date, so.
And the cost per mile of pipe, is like a tenth of what it costs us. The public supply.
Because we're helping them,
But we help them.
yeah.
Oh, laterals, is that what
Yeah,
you?
Yeah.
that's on the previous page.
That's right, well, our grants, you did approve an approach where we have a higher I&I basins, so we will make $2,500 available to those basins, and $1,500 available to everyone. And so that number of 175,000 miles, as Tom mentioned, the planning number for capital work is probably like $1.5 million a mile. And so why is it so much less? Well, because the private property owner is bearing the most. So 1,500 doesn't pay for the whole lateral. It's more like 10,000. And so that's why, there's a multiplier there of benefit. But, it's a source of I&I, it's a source of problems for the sewer system that these upgrades help remedy. And I think if you look at the total of 24 miles, or 25 miles, right, that's
a quarter of our.
a quarter, maybe it's a quarter divided by 2, right?
Which one am I?
It's
Yeah.
an 8.
Right, so it's an 8.
Math major.
But, and actually it's a reasonable, and I wrote it in here, because it is a rule of thumb that I know from my experience as an engineer, is that, there's about the same amount of mileage of laterals as mains. In
Yeah, that's
any
right.
typical system.
200,
It varies. So it's probably about 200 plus or minus, and then you got an eighth of it that you've replaced
Well,
in the last decade, and most of which in the last 5 years.
But I was just going to point out that if you look at from year 5 to year 10, that's at the same angle. It's going steadily up, and that's a great factor. I mean, it had a good start, it was doing fine, but 5 years ago it started taking off, and that's a straight line angle.
Yeah, it might be, we were in budgeting, we've tapered it down a little, because we see the demand not quite as strong. So I don't know if you can have it.
Sure we can. There's lots of ways, there's lots of ways to address that. One way is to increase the grant. If we want this replacement to continue at the same pace, we could at some point, this board can consider, because if what you're saying is there's less demand, then there'd be less dollar demand. We have a budget for this. So if we wish at some point, this board can consider increasing the amount of the grant.
Well, there are lots of factors that go into whether somebody replaces their lateral, not just how big the grant is, right? I mean, it's
No, that's
more
right.
about the property turnover rate, right? There's just not that
Well,
much.
that's
And construction.
Oh, right.
See, at finance committee, we discussed ways to, there's a certain percentage that don't, there's a certain percentage that don't replace their lateral when they sell the property. and ways to enforce that.
We talked about that too.
And
When did we talk about
I,
Business plan.
We talked about business plan.
I suggested, there's a sewer service charge that we could count, not a fine, you're putting more water in than one EDU should be. And so we could calculate an amount and levy a service charge and tell them, we're gonna levy the service charge on you. You see, as opposed to fines or doing the project, that's completely impractical.
Well, wait a minute. No, we talked in business plan, not as much fines.
Well, no, that's not part of the metrics, so we'll come back to that.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Very good.
Okay, good point.
Where are we in a page, or are we just?
No.
Well, we,
If
move it around.
a board member has a comment.
Yeah, do you have any questions or comments?
I really love this year-end metrics report on the collateral, where you divvied up the town.
Yeah.
That, to me, is really interesting. Is that based on population, the percentages, or do you just think that people are more educated?
I can
Do you
throw
have
something
any
in.
ideas on that, huh?
I can throw something in the chat. No, Fairfax is about 7,000.
Right,
Larkspur and San Anselmo are both about 12. San
13.
Anselmo's 12 and a half.
yeah.
Larkspur is 13, so Larkspur's not getting the word out as well.
So you
Sleepy
think,
Hollow, I mean,
Oh, wait, be careful, it's confusing. Part of Larkspur is in Greenbrae, and so we split up Greenbrae into unincorporated and Larkspur, and so actually, it's 42% Larkspur.
Okay, that's good.
If you look at that.
Ross, they're all rich, they don't need any help.
They want it. Rich people
1%.
Rich people.
1%.
well,
Yeah, how
that's,
come they don't?
because there's not much of that area that unincorporated, well, I don't really know how many, but it's small.
In the narrative, we talk about how these percentages track pretty closely with the population.
Okay,
You know, it's, for instance, in San Anselmo, the percent of grants at 30% slightly exceeded the percent of laterals at 28%. You know, so, and Larkspur has about 15% of the assets, but has 42% of grants. So actually, Larkspur is far exceeding.
Wow.
And part of that is because of paving projects. So we're actively, our front line, our front office staff is actively working.
They had a paving
Larkspur and getting the word out to residents before the paving moratorium gets exercised. So there's actually the effort of our staff to implement that. And it's been successful. We've got a lot of repairs in advance of paving moratorium.
how many people live in Ross, Tom?
Just
Tom knows all of them, so.
No, but just under 3,000.
3,000? Okay.
Yeah, we're underrepresented on that.
It'd be interesting to see per capita, right? So it'd be interesting for you to give us, a rate. I think that's basically what we're all trying to figure out. Not that it needs to be in
Get back to
this.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, and it would be simple. It's a spreadsheet,
Okay.
thing.
Sure, it's a great report.
All right, are we ready to accept it?
Do I hear a motion?
I move we accept the year-end metrics report for fiscal year 2018-19 with great gratitude and fanfare.
I'll second.
Special thanks to Steve and Patrick.
Yes.
Good. All in
This
favor?
is
Aye.
awesome.
All right.
Aye.
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 So accepted. Number 14. Number 13. Consideration of appointing board members to meet in a special ad hoc Central Marin Sanitation Agency committee meeting to discuss an agreement, can you believe it, for the withdrawal of the city of Larkspur from CMSA JPA. This is a little bit crazy. It's been going back and forth for ages. This city
Why?
wanted,
What's the deal?
because this city wanted to do something and then the other city wanted to do something.
Like wordsmith
No.
the agreement?
I don't
And
know
so
that.
it's back into
Because
Santa Fe.
Because one town has this issue, and we can get past this, if San Rafael wants to make sure that they have it written in a certain manner, that there's no way that
Well, they can get sued.
they can get sued. And
I think it was a delay.
that's what delays. And
Anyway,
I think we can settle this
I'm inclined to
fast.
sue them.
I'd be happy to serve in this committee as ad hoc, and I think we can get it done.
I think we probably want to
Who
just.
wants to be on the ad hoc
I
committee?
no, it's
think
just,
Oh, great.
it's just one, what Jason suggested was that one person who's already on the CMSA board, and then one person from Corte Madera, one person from Santa Fe.
Or just appoint board members, so I thought it was both of you.
No, it's one from each.
So,
Well, it's one of, it's either Michael or Doug.
I'd like to finish this, and I think I kind of started this, so I'd like to see.
I think
But
that's
a
a
lot
good idea.
I'm sorry, what now?
I don't know if this is gossip, but from what I've heard, I'm not saying from who, is that Mary Beth has got some real, how do I say this in a nice way?
It doesn't, the thing is,
Driving force to create what she wants, or what she considers she wants, in order to pass it through, and that's been a stalemate.
Right, that's fine.
More or less.
She's a lawyer, she's very smart, she's very
So-
helpful, she's got
But
great
it's
ideas.
been
I
going
think
on
it's
for
fine.
how long now, 2 weeks?
It's too long, but we can,
Right.
this is the wrap up, so let's get it done.
So may the force be with
She's,
you.
you know, she's very detail oriented, she's
No,
on the ball.
I've heard from various people that we were looked at as leaders because we just did slam dunk. But she put like a wedge in.
I move that we appoint Doug.
Okay,
Okay,
I
guys,
second.
no yelling.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
And more metrics. Yay.
Today, this is the unfolding 1920 metric story.
I have one little thing, are we done? This is just a question, I'm sorry to ask now, but we moved our videotaping to Thursday night. It used to be Sunday mornings, but the other night I turned on the tube and it was late Thursday night. Is that
When
right?
it gets played, do we have any control over when it gets played by the?
It used to be Sunday mornings, but it was moved. Just
When
wanted
they
to let,
play the tapings of these meetings.
sorry?
I'm just trying to get a question.
What is the question?
When did
So
they,
when our meetings that are videotaped and put out, they used to be Sunday mornings. They're now Thursday night, late.
prime time?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think it's fine, because I don't think they want to see us on a Sunday morning, but did they do it, or did we do it, or?
I think the.
Talking about Marin TV.
MC, what's it called?
CMCM.
It's
all right.
also available online.
It's on our website.
Yeah, so that they don't have to wait, you know, if they're so excited, they can watch it whenever, they can watch it over and over.
All right, but yes.
It's
you're
also on
right.
YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because the sound on this thing is, it's not good.
Director Mace, to my knowledge, I did not direct CMCM to change the date of the replay.
Okay, I'll ask them.
Okay.
Can I make answer a question? The RVSD flows to CMSA are always interesting to me. Steve's not in the room. I'm wondering if we couldn't get, at some point, it's no hurry, maybe the average percentage of our flow to CMSA over the last, number of years to see if it's going in any particular direction.
You know who's got that?
CMSA.
See, it's that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Then
So let's get the other way around. I'll ask Jason.
Yeah, we can look at it then as compared to the other agencies.
Okay, no, withdrawn. I'll ask Jason. That's his info.
So, that being said, not Merry Christmas yet, Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.